In this lecture, we are going to investigate asset management ratios. So, using DeLeon's financial statements, we will do so. So, here's again a restatement of their balance and income statements, some additional data that we will need. Asset management has to do with how well is a firm using its assets to generate sales. So our first ratio is inventory turnover, and the name is very revealing. It is how many times the firm turns over or sells out of its inventory in a particular accounting period. So for 2020, DeLeon turns over their inventory about 4 times a year. Looks like about once every quarter. When we compare that to its previous years, we see that they're slowing down, that they're turning over not as quickly as they've done in the past, and it is way off what on average other firms in that industry turn over. So, what's the cause? What could be the cause, and what is the solution? So, based on the inventory turnover ratio, we already know that it is below the industry average and it's getting worse for this firm. So it could have old inventory that's just sitting around and gathering dust, or its control over its inventory might be poor, and no improvement is currently forecasted. So what's the solution? The solution is to go out to the warehouse and to determine what's the inventory. Is there any old, obsolete inventory that isn't moving? If it is, it needs to be junked. We also need to find out what items are selling, and maybe we need to reduce our product line. Another asset management ratio is what's called days sales outstanding. It represents the average number of days after making a credit sale before receiving cash. Okay? Firms want this to be small, but not too small, because if it's too small, they probably are scaring away sales. If it's too long, that means that their customers are taking advantage of them. So here it takes their credit customers about 46 and a half days to pay after the sale is made. Well, we know that ratios mean nothing alone, so we've got to compare it. That 46.44 days is way off the industry average, way too long. Furthermore, it's taking DeLeon more and more time to collect on these credit sales. It's just getting worse. So how do we reduce it? We've got to go to our accounts receivables manager and ask to see an aging schedule on each one of our credit customers. There may be only a few bad apples that are bringing down this ratio, or perhaps it's a more pervasive problem where all of our credit customers are taking too long to pay. Whatever the situation is, it can be resolved. If it's just a few bad apples, or even if it's all our customers, we might have to pick up the phone, may have to request payment be made, might have to send a strongly worded letter. Certainly, we need to reevaluate our credit policy. Maybe we need to offer a discount for paying early. Maybe we need to charge a penalty for paying too late. We need to hasten the collection of our receivables. The last two ratios in asset management are the fixed asset turnover, which tells us how efficiently we are using our fixed assets to generate sales, and our total asset turnover, which tells us how efficiently we're using our total assets to generate sales. So we've calculated those two figures for 2020. We see that for the fixed asset turnover, it was fantastic in 2018, took a dip in 2019, and then it's poised to make a return in 2020. Fantastic. Total asset turnover is on a downward trajectory, and it's off. It's not near the industry average. Well, our fixed asset turnover looks nice. We do have a lot of new fixed assets that were purchased. If you recall from our statement of cash flows in Chapter 3, we know this firm bought a whole bunch of fixed assets. So they ought to be generating a nice level of sales. Total asset turnover, not so hot. Why? What's the difference between fixed asset and total assets? The difference is our current assets, and we know that we might have some issues with those current assets, particularly accounts receivables. We have a heavy accounts receivable because we're not collecting from our customers quickly. And the inventory is also a part of our current assets. We're not turning them over enough. We've got these excessive current assets on our books. So that's bringing down that total asset turnover figure.